I'm sure you're all familiar, if you're not familiar with, there used to be a birch here with the bench. It's kind of the classic landscape of what the pavilion and the whole site used to be. The birch unfortunately was dying, and it was actually like right at a line of imminent failure. Like if you just shook it the wrong way, it was gonna break. So we kind of decided like maybe it's time to replace that tree with something else. And so we wanted to kind of think outside the box. It doesn't grow anything taller usually than like 30 feet. It'll kind of sit right at that perfect level to keep the view and the view shed intact. Went to Catskill Native Nursery and we were looking at some smaller, you know, like 1 inch, really small ones. And the gentleman at the counter said, oh, we have a really big one in the back and we just can't find homes for them. And so Tammy and I looked at each other like, uh-oh. And he's like, I'll do a good price for you. And that was tips and tricks. When you're purchasing a tree at a nursery, and this is like a pretty big tree. I mean, even just buying something for your home, this size is like kind of right at that threshold. Anything bigger is when you're starting to get into like machine planting. But when you're purchasing a tree, you look at the root, whatever the root and the trunk. So this was container grown. Or it could have been containerized. I'm not sure the origins before we saw it, but it was in a container. And containers, when they are, and all you also, you know, you're all plant wizards, so you know more than me. But the roots want to kind of girdle themselves and choke themselves out. So when you get them, you got to make sure you open them up. And that's not a concern. That's not something that would make you not want to buy a tree. It's just something to think of. You want to look at the trunk. So you want to look right outside, right at this trunk flare here, and you want to make sure it's intact. There's no, no mushrooms, nothing suspicious. Here you can see there's been one prune made this might have died. This probably was a competing leader at one point, but it has died and compartmentalized since. So that's not something to be concerned about. If it was growing and there was, a mini leaf coming off here, I'd be more worried about that, but this was taken care of early. So that's not a concern. Tim actually named this tree already. I wish I could. Tim, what's the name of this tree? Margaret. This tree's name is Margaret. But
I think we're going to take other names.
Helen the Hornbeam.
Helen the Hornbeam, that's nice. So we'll take into consideration all the names. But so now what I'm doing is I'm just going to break apart, get all the matted roots out. And kind of looking at the roots, a lot of this is all the absorbing roots. So we want to keep as much as we can, but we're not worried about losing some of it. You're gonna lose some of it. It's totally natural. You see the soil has been fertilized when it was being grown in the container. So it's in good shape. So when we backfill this, and just a fun fact about hornbeams, they have shallow root systems. So we're not super worried about the soil below the trunk. And we're not super worried about how deep the hole is. We're worried about kind of creating a good environment for the roots that are going to stretch out, and the absorbing roots on the surface that'll gain as much water as they can. So perfect hole here. It's about twice as wide as it is deep. And as we fill, once we get it all broken apart, we'll kind of pack in soil to hold the roots, but you don't want to suffocate the roots. Pack it in, regrade everything out.
Can I talk about the perennial bed then?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so while everybody's here, and most of them are sun, part shade perennials because the sun, you can see it's going this way. This is the southern sky, that it's doing an arc, right? And it's going to set like over there, is that right?
Yeah, it kind of follows this. It's every time I'm out here, it always
I think west is kind of that way because the bridge goes southwest.
Yeah.
All right, so it's coming,
like hugs
like around there behind the barn. Is that kind of where it sets?
Yeah.
Or all right, so the thinking, this is a 20 to 30 foot wide, right? About when it's mature or no?
Yeah, so it could be. I mean, it depends on what we decide on hands-on pruning. But if we let it naturally, it could be anywhere 20 to 25 foot wide.
So ultimately, there's going to be a bench here that you can sit in its shade. Right?
Yep.
Right in here. Some columbine in here because columbine loves rock.
That's the final resting place for that rock?
This rock was very carefully part of our design. If anybody remembers, the birch used to be there with the bench here. And so We moved it back a little to purposefully integrate this rock into the landscape. Just to the stewardship team, it also makes it easier for them to mow because there's going to be a bed. So this is part of this landscape design. And this is going to be columbine all around here. Right now we only have one plant, but we will, you have to fully stratify columbine seed. So that means I'm going to plant some seeds in the fall all around this, and all winter they'll be cold for 6 weeks, and hopefully we'll get some other perennials to put in and around here. So the bed should look beautiful. And you're going to top it off with some mulch when we're done, right?
Yeah, we're going to get natural brown mulch,
Yeah.
which is the bark included. That's just what makes it that brown color. So it will have a little bit more organic material in it, which will help everything kind of get that kickstart it needs. So, and we'll water it, and we'll keep a look after it for the future, and hopefully it takes well, and we'll have a beautiful bed.